We're here at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, and we'll be starting our tour of the Koch Hall of Human Origins, and we'll find out about true human history. Well, to begin our tour of the Hall of Human Origins, we have to go through the time tunnel, where we're introduced to the variety of alleged human ancestors. We're here at the Australopithecine exhibit at the Museum of Natural History. This is Lucy, of course discovered by Donald Johanson in the 1970s. They named the creature Lucy after Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which was a popular Beatles song at the time. This is a fully fleshed out model of what they think Lucy would have looked like. I want to point out a couple of things in particular as we previously discussed in class. Take a good look at the eyes. Notice the eyes, you can see the white, which that's a human characteristic. Humans, you can see the whites of the eyes. Gorillas, chimps, all of the apes, you cannot see whites. You cannot see the sclera. Obviously, there were no fossil eyes, so it's an artistic interpretation that they have added to this exhibit. I would like to point out also the feet. Notice how they have all of the toes in line, as we see in humans, whereas chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans have an opposable big toe. I'm glad that they have the tree because much of the evidence about Australopithecines are that they were arboreal, that they lived in trees much as orangutans do. Now the carrying angle, that's the angle of the femur for Australopithecines, is pretty steep. Chimpanzees and gorillas, their femurs go straight. Australopithecines are angled, slightly more than humans are angled. The angle, as we discussed, allows humans to walk upright as we're spending some of our time on one foot. So with the angle of the femur, we're able to shift our weight just a little bit to keep the weight over the center of gravity onto the feet. In the case of Australopithecines, like orangutans, if they're living in trees and spending a lot of time walking on branches, you're walking on a tightrope in essence, so it is advantageous to have a steep angle there. When we see the skeleton of Lucy, we'll see how little of the actual fossil material they have that they then base this whole reconstruction on. But in particular, we have two small bones for the toes, and there's one bone for a finger. So all of what you're looking at for hands and feet were not part of what they found with Lucy. It's a model from bone clones. It's meant to be, it is a replica of what the Lucy fossil material are. Now, part of why they used the name Lucy was because they thought this was a female, in part because of the small size. But if you look at the pelvis shape is heart-shaped. Females have actually an oval pelvis. Males have a heart-shaped pelvis. That's because in females, obviously, a baby has to pass through the pelvis out the birth canal. So maybe it should just be called Lou. I also want to point out from the skull. So what we have is a replica skull. The brown is actual fossil material. The white is filled in. Now, to a degree, it's fair in a case like this, where we have teeth on this side. Mammals are bilaterally symmetrical, so we can assume that the other side is an exact match. So even though we don't have a piece on this side, it's still probably pretty accurate. But in terms of the skull, we have mostly filler, especially in the area of the foramen magnum, where the nerves are going from the brain out through the spinal cord. So we don't really know what this would have been like. What we can tell from the fossil, though, is this is flat in the back. And so if we have flat back here, that's consistent with strong muscle attachments in the back, which would be necessary for having a head out if you're a knuckle walker, if you're on all fours. You don't need strong muscle attachments if you are walking fully upright, because the skull rests neatly on top of the vertebral column. And actually, since we don't really have much of this part, we can't really be certain of what the angle is supposed to be, and in fact this may be further up, which would make an even steeper angle than what is shown in this replica. Just a few steps away from the model of Lucy, the Smithsonian has a fully articulated skeleton. It has not only the fossil material, but some filler to make it appear complete. This is a model that shows the fragments of bone that they had for Lucy, and they have filled in the missing pieces. The missing pieces are black. The brown is the fossil material that they have. And this replica of the pelvis is from bone clones, and it's a very good replica. They have only a small piece here where it's gray. This piece is what they've kind of filled in as it was missing. And then, of course, they mirrored the pelvis. But this doesn't match what they have here. If you look closely, they have black material in this groove, which we don't have in the bone clones model. Also, if you look closely at the way the vertebral column is set, we have very few vertebrae from Lucy. Most of that is black, and where we've got the bend where the first vertebrae is meeting the sacrum, if you'll notice, it looks a little odd. That's because you don't have, as in humans, which are normally upright, you have more of a curvature at the top of the coccyx, or at the top of the sacrum, sorry. And you have a broader weight-bearing top there. This, actually, if you would move Lucy to be in a posture that was more consistent with a quadrupedal locomotion, the vertebral column wouldn't look so strange. The evidence that evolutionists used to suggest that Lucy and her kind walked upright are the Laetoli footprints. And we have a picture and a description of those right next to the model of Lucy at the Smithsonian. Over here they have a picture of the Laetoli footprints. We have a cast of the Laetoli footprints on display at the university. The Laetoli footprints were dated several million years old, and that's the primary reason for assuming that the footprints were left by Australopithecines. As scientists have analyzed the footprints in numerous ways, they are left by individuals who walked completely upright. The big toe is in line with the other digits, and there's a nice arch, and analysis of the pressure marks is totally consistent with upright locomotion. If we were looking at the real cast instead of a picture, what you can see in the inside of the large footprints, you can see actually a very small set of footprints, which adds more evidence that these were upright, because the small footprint was left by a very small individual that was probably jumping and stepping in the larger footprints, which my kids have done in the snow. When I've left footprints in the snow, they kind of jump in my steps. A more recent fossil find that is displacing Lucy as the oldest human ancestor is Tomé. Tomé was discovered in Central Africa by Michael Brunet. And let's see how the Smithsonian portrays this alleged ancestor. Specimen is nicknamed Tomé. It is allegedly the oldest human ancestor. It's supposed to be 6 million years old. A few things about this display, though, because this is a replica from bone clones. And I'll note when we go to part of the exhibits where they have a variety of skulls, this is the same skull that they have on display there, at least as far as I can tell. But it's not the same one that they have here. This one is larger. This one in the display is larger than what we have here and what they have on display further down. But critically, if you look from this side, it's drawn in such a way to make it appear that this was an individual that walked upright, when the flat evidence from the muscle attachment as well as the location of the foramen magnum far to the rear would be more consistent with a quadrupedal or arboreal mode of locomotion. This is the bust of Sahelanthropus. I think they used the larger model from the other part of the museum rather than this size, which they have in display there, because this bust is larger than what would expect based on the size of the skull. Note the very ape-like appearance of this, as well as they've got the right eyes. See, we can't see the white sclera on this individual. Okay, but as we look at some of the others, we'll see how they've lended an artistic element to it. This is Australopithecus afarensis, and notice the jump in the eyes. Right, we've got very clearly human eyes with the human white sclera visible. So we've got human eyes in an ape skull, and so it does come across to people as somewhat human-like because of the eyes. Also want to point out in the text, okay, Watch. Australopithecus afarensis could walk upright, a trait that helped this early human species find food. Okay, see, calling it an early human species, it's not a human species, and the scientific name Australopithecus afarensis, it's not even in the Homo category. Homo rudolfensis, Homo sapien, Homo neanderthalensis. So in their text, they're kind of making it come across more human than it really should be. So this exhibit is telling us about our ape heritage. They have some fossil apes, but what we frequently see in evolution pictures and books and so forth is something like this. So we have, of course, the girl that's swinging on just like we have the chimpanzee swinging on the branches. And of course, they're pointing out how similar we are with flexible wrists, flexible elbows, broad flexible shoulders, broad chest, stable backbone. They're showing how similar we are, when we could also point out some significant differences. Eyes with white sclera, toes in line with the digits, an S-shaped spinal cord, skull that rests on top of the vertebral column versus the apes, which is forward. So if you are looking for similarities, you can find similarities. If you're looking for differences, you'll find the differences, because it's the differences that make the difference. Well, it really is the differences that make the difference. And it's differences in worldview that lead to different conclusions. You see, if we start from an evolutionary worldview and we're looking for transitional forms, then we'll find them, whether they really exist or not. We saw at the Smithsonian examples of artistic license where they added elements where there really was no data, the white sclera and the eyes, for example. But they're doing that because they really believe that those ancestors are intermediate between humans and apes. Now, we need to remember that these conclusions are based on interpretations of data, not the data itself. And a creationist can look at the same data and come to the opposite conclusion, that man really is unique and special, that he is created directly by God, not through some evolutionary process through ape-like ancestors. God had loved man so much that he sent his son to die on the cross to pay for our sins. The Son of Man came as a man, not as an ape. Remember that.